Nearly 140 million babies are born each year around the world, yet little scientific research exists on the biomechanics of pregnancy. In 2018, 3 GW scientists, physicists Megan Leftwich, obstetrician Michael Gallagher, and PhD student Alexa Balmer, began an unprecedented project to better understand human birth.
We're really good at getting babies into this world. We are not so good at understanding how that works. I hear people, oh, it's such a natural process, it just works. Like, it doesn't just work, people die doing this.
As an undergraduate in the mechanical engineering department, Alexa began working with Dr. Leftwich on the fluid dynamics of labor and delivery.
The birth project was a really exciting topic to sort of take mechanics and try to apply it to this thing that happens every single day. It's surprising in some ways how understudied labor and delivery is. As more women become engineers and scientists, I think that there will be a lot of developments.
Roughly a third of vaginal deliveries fail in the developed world, and so we have a C-section. In some countries, that's closer to half. Every percentage of surgical delivery costs about $600 million. So if you can go from 30 to 27%, you're talking almost $2 billion a year in healthcare saving. If we can start to understand the mechanics of this process better, we can develop better mechanical solutions. There's so much potential to do good with just really small changes because of how universal pregnancy is.
At the same time Dr. Leftwich and Alexa were beginning their research, Dr. Gallagher was troubled by a very specific high-risk pregnancy issue: cervical insufficiency.
Cervical insufficiency is a very difficult problem that results in some very, very distressing pregnancy loss. In a normal pregnancy, the cervix is closed throughout, and there's a structure called the internal os, which is the part of the cervix that's right where the fetus is. And in some pregnancies, for various reasons, this starts to give way as the pregnancy progresses, and it's painless, so people don't know it unless you're really looking for it. And the cervix opens, and eventually so much that the membranes around the fetus rupture and the fluid comes out, or the baby just comes out. And it's a painless loss. It's sometimes around 18 to 20 weeks, which is difficult because the infant will not survive. If we find it before the fetus comes out, we can actually do an emergency cerclage to keep baby in. But as I looked at our literature, I was somewhat dissatisfied in that there was a very diverse opinion about whether this cerclage was even effective or not. The actual mechanism of why the cervix opened was never really looked at, and I thought, gee, that would be a good project. It dawned on me one day, gee, we have a whole university here, and I bet there's some people, the question I'm asking is really a physics question. So I asked around in the physics department, and they referred me to the engineering department, and that's how I got hooked up with Megan Leftwich.
Dr. Gallagher actually emailed a colleague of mine. He's like, you probably hit on the best mechanical engineering department to do this, because I don't know anybody else studying this, but Megan actually does this.
We decided, well, we'd have to investigate the phenomenon of cervical insufficiency in general. And then how are we going to do that? Well, we should try to model the cervix.
We developed a model based on ultrasound images that they collected from some patients, and we were able to take those into our lab and 3D print the model, and then choose a silicone that had very similar properties to cervical tissue, and cast those models and take them back to the hospital and kind of talk about if it felt like a real cervix or not.
Well, and so we designed this so that it really didn't move.
Right. No, that's fine. No, when we were there, we did what we needed to do.
Based on that feedback, kind of tinker with it a little bit more, and then finally take the completed models over there to be stitched up by the physician. We published our first set of results last year in Interface Focus, which is the journal of the Royal Society. Those results were mainly focused on the process of creating this synthetic version of the cervix and figuring out what types of silicones would be good to use for synthetic versions of tissue.
People always look and think like, we're like 30 years behind in studying this. We do experiments like if the baby were a cylinder. And people are always like, oh, but you're missing so much of the realisticness. But I'm gonna argue that's okay. 30 years ago, heart models, the heart was a sphere. And now we have patient-specific models. So we're a little behind because nobody has asked these questions before. You've got to start with the simple and add the complexity in.
It's been a very good experience so far. And we're hoping that we will answer several questions.
Can we, reduce the rate of premature delivery? Can we reduce the rate of cesarean sections? Can we mitigate risk as much as possible and have safe and healthy pregnancies and deliveries?
4 million babies are born every year in this country alone. Every human has to be born. We're not going to cure pregnancy, so even just a small percentage impact can touch a lot of lives.